Aunt Rachel, are you sure about this house?
A few days after getting married and moving into our new place, I invited my beloved niece and her mother, my sister. Then my niece said something that made us uneasy.
Hey now, kids shouldn't be messing with grown-ups.
Scolded by my husband, who tends to get worried really quickly. But there was another reason why he was freaking out. My name is Rachel. I'm a 30-year-old pharmacist. I often look after my niece who lives nearby, and she has grown very attached to me. She's the cutest, and I end up spoiling her. Every time my sister picks her up, she complains. I know I'm the one who asked you to look after her, but you spoil her too much. Of course, whenever she drops her off, she warns. Remember, you can't spoil a child when raising them. But I joke in reply, saying that parenting is a mother's responsibility. That's how things go every day in my life. My sister is a nurse, so she's busy most of the time. She works in a well-paying hospital ward and is also working night shifts. On the other hand, as a pharmacist working at a drugstore, I have fixed working hours and no night shifts. I'm off on days with no outpatient visits, and I don't have to be called in when the clinic is understaffed. So I often end up looking after my niece when my sister is busy. It might be because she's aware of her situation, but compared to kids her age, she is very calm and obedient. Girls are said to grow up faster than boys, but for her case, I think her family environment is the main reason. I've been spending time with her to make sure she doesn't feel lonely, but now she has me under her thumb. She's a quiet child who doesn't seek much attention, but she has this one ability that's hard for others to understand. For instance, when I tell her, "The park was empty today, wasn't it? Time flew by quick. Want to take a shortcut home?" She would give an eerie response saying,
Rachel, Auntie, we shouldn't go that way. There's a bad thing. Let's take the long way around.
And things like this happen often. What bad thing? I've heard that children have edged senses that allow them to see and hear things we can't feel, but is that for real? To be honest, I don't fully believe it. One day, a regular male customer at the pharmacy asked me out for lunch. When you hear a regular at a pharmacy, you might think he's sick, but that's not necessarily true. This man got injured while working, and he's just getting his treatment, so he's healthy overall. In the beginning, he visited frequently, and we casually chatted. His injury is healing well, and we were talking about him maybe not needing to come anymore, and that's when he asked me out for lunch. After a few lunch dates, he invited me out for dinner, and we had drinks at a rather fancy bar. Then I started to let my guard down with him and even shared some personal things about myself. It started to dawn on me that crossing that line into a relationship was just a matter of time, and then he proposed to me very passionately.
I want to get married to you right now. I can't imagine my life without you, Rachel.
Hearing him say that made me happy. I was overwhelmed by the realization that he needed me in his life, and I found no reason to reject him, so I accepted his proposal as if I was being drawn into it. Then, to my surprise, he picked me up in front of everyone, laughing like a child. I found that side of him charming. Furthermore, he suggested,
"Let's have a ceremony just for the two of us, right now."
He mentioned he knew someone in the bridal industry who could host and prioritize our wedding ceremony. While I was delighted, I still wanted to be blessed by our loved ones at our ceremony, so I turned down this suggestion. His disappointed face honestly made my heart ache. But I wanted our union to be blessed by others more than anything else, so I chose to stick with my decision. Even though he looked disappointed, he respected my feelings and withdrew his suggestion quite easily. That's also one thing I liked about him. The very next day, which was the happiest day of my life, I shared the news of our engagement with my older sister before she went to work. Seeing her joy, as if it were her own, made me relieved that I didn't have to rush to have our ceremony then. As I was happily recalling yesterday's events, he texted me saying he wanted to see me. When we first started dating, I remember him saying that he had a younger sister. However, I was surprised to hear for the first time that his sister was hospitalized at the moment. When I asked why he didn't tell me earlier, he explained that he didn't want me to accept his marriage proposal out of sympathy for him. He also pointed out the possibility of the opposite happening. I assured him that I wouldn't make decisions based on his sister's illness, and him softly responding, "I know," made me head over heels for him. But I still pulled myself together to stay in my senses. He showed me a picture of his sister and told me, "When I told her about you, Rachel, she said she can't wait for the day when she can call you Big Sis." I wanted to make my sister's wish come true as soon as possible. When he held my hand and said, "Let's become a family soon," I was yet again moved. But even if we aren't married yet, I wasn't against the idea of being called Big Sis by his younger sister. I wanted to visit his sister, who was in the hospital, before getting married right away. However, when I told him this, he said, "After I visited her the other day, her condition worsened and the doctors limited her visitation." "Is it okay for you to be seeing me right now in a time like this?" I asked. He responded by pulling out a charm from his jacket pocket. "All I can do is pray for my sister. I stopped by the church before I came here to see you, Rachel. There's nothing I can do besides praying for her. Damn it." He expressed his frustration. Seeing him like this, I deeply wanted to be there to support him. Since the next day, he suddenly stopped contacting me. I guess his sister's condition had gotten worse. I hoped he wasn't pushing himself too much, and then, after about 3 days, his usual cheery self showed up at the pharmacy. Although he could have just texted me, he said he wanted to see me in person. That was enough to make me happy. We made plans to meet after we both got done with work. When I arrived at our rendezvous right on time, he was already there waiting. As I had suspected, he explained that he had been by his sister's bedside due to her deteriorating condition. He told me she was still not allowed to have other visitors, but her condition was now stable, and I breathed a sigh of relief. He then handed me a letter saying it was from his sister. I was surprised. I didn't expect to receive a letter from her, since I heard that she was in critical condition. Reading my expression, he explained, "Seems like she's been writing a lot, and I didn't even know." He then shyly admitted, "Actually, I fell for you at the first sight, so I had a crush on you for a long time." Turns out he had been talking about me even before we started dating. The letter contained words of hope for our relationship, dreams of her brother's love being fulfilled. "I hope the day comes when I get to call you Big Sis soon. I wonder if even I can be a flower girl." She was dreaming of me getting married with her brother and us becoming a family. Fighting an illness is hard. It's probably a struggle to even use her limited energy to wish for others' happiness, yet the letter was filled with the thoughts of her brother getting married to me, which brought tears to my eyes. "Let's get married soon," I told him with excitement. It seems very unlikely that his sister will be able to attend our wedding, but I want her to be able to witness her beloved brother's big day. After some insistence, I got him to reveal the name of the hospital she was staying at, and I found a wedding chapel nearby. The chapel was visible to the naked eye from the patient's room or the rooftop, which made it feel like she could be there with us, and I begged to have our ceremony there. He was touched to know that I genuinely cared about his sister. He was fully down with the idea, and we soon fixed a date. Ideally, we wanted to choose one of those days known to be blissful, but we couldn't afford to be picky. The day we fixed for our ceremony happened to be less expensive, and it was the only day available, so we went with it without hesitation. While preparations were hastily underway, he made a suggestion. He asked if we could wait a bit longer to turn in our marriage certificate. His sister's condition had worsened, and she needed to go under a surgery as soon as possible. It seems like the medical bill was going to be more expensive than expected, that it was even affecting our wedding budget. As for me, it didn't feel right to have a wedding under such circumstance either. When I suggested waiting until after his sister's surgery, he exclaimed, "If she found out our wedding was canceled because of her, it would ruin her will to heal." Hearing that, I couldn't say anything, and the wedding proceeded as planned. For the time being, I paid for our ceremony in one installment, under the agreement that we would split them after his sister's medical bills were paid. Despite the short notice, a decent amount of our close friends and family managed to attend our wedding day. My own sister, who's a nurse, even managed to get time off with the help of her colleagues, saying, "This is an important day for my little sister. I can't miss it." My cute little niece was dressed up and joined in too, but because she was not used to being around grown men, she got shy and ended up hiding behind me quickly. Her actions were so adorable that it made me chuckle. After the wedding, I moved into our new home. He had suggested me to move into his place, since his place was too big for him alone. Because we figured that his sister's surgery was going to cost more than we anticipated, we decided to not purchase a newly built home. I could support him for a while, but we couldn't tell when he'll be able to pay back the rest of our expenses. And so I decided to move into his place. My sister was understanding of my decision, but she still felt that it would be better if we had our own new place. So I decided to invite my sister and niece over. My boyfriend, he's my husband now, agreed to the idea. Upon visiting, my sister immediately began inspecting our house, showing her concern. "Hey, it's a bit rude to check every corner of our house, sis." "So I see, a 32-year-old CEO of an import company makes good money, huh?"
Are you satisfied now?
"Yes, I suppose so." My husband and I let out a sigh of relief. The only downside was that by moving here, it became more difficult to frequently babysit or take care of my niece. It was too far to let a 5-year-old travel alone. And with my duties of nursing my husband's sister, I was too occupied. That's when my niece, out of the blue, said something eerie.
Rachel, I think you should leave this house.
Huh?
Because another woman is already living here.
Hey, even if you're a kid, there are things you should and shouldn't say.
He angrily turned towards my sister, questioning her parenting. Can you perhaps see her? When my niece nods yes, my husband's anger seems to dissipate into fright. My niece is quite sensitive. Perhaps you're not good with this kind of thing.
No, that's not the issue. Kids shouldn't be messing with grown-ups.
I'm not messing with you. It's someone you know really well. A woman with her black hair always tied back, thin eyes, slightly overweight, with a mole near her eyes.
My husband's face turned pale. He's clearly scared, but it seems like there's something more to it. What confirmed my skeptics was my niece's following question.
What's your real name, Uncle? You use so many. Have you forgotten it?
Even trembling, my husband raises his voice.
You little brat, don't spout nonsense.
Hey, don't yell at her just because you're scared.
Shut up.
My husband shoved me away. He seems more than just panicked with fear. Even if what my niece says is strange, in the end, it always turns out to be true. My usual gentle husband wouldn't change this drastically without reason. I can't shake the feeling that he's not just reacting out of fear. I whispered to my sister and asked her to check inside my husband's bag. In the meantime, I decided to give up for the time being to get my husband's attention. I'm sorry, my niece was out of line.
Huh? It's okay as long as you get it. Dang, my precious day off got ruined because of all this.
He glares at my niece, but she's not bothered. She simply looked away with a stoic expression. Oh yeah, you have a long business trip starting tomorrow, right? As I used soothing words to placate my husband, he gradually calmed down, and the topic of conversation shifted to stuff like what he should bring back for souvenirs. However, we didn't get to discuss the details of the souvenirs. The reason was, the name on the driver's license my sister found in his bag was a name I didn't recognize. Furthermore, she found multiple phones from his bag. Rachel, your guy's probably sketchy. Aren't these burner phones?
Burner phones? The kind used in scams and such?
Exactly. Registered under someone else's or even false names. It's illegal.
And what if it is? Thanks to that, Rachel's been eating well and enjoying fancy dates, hasn't she?
He said it as if I was his partner in crime. Cut the crap! My sister is nothing like a piece of trash like you.
There's a woman clinging to him, like she'll never let him go.
What? Watch your mouth, kid. Even if you try to scare me, I won't fall for it again.
It seemed less out of fear and more like he was brazen now that his true identity was starting to be exposed. But the fact that he was not trying to escape showed that he was confident in not getting arrested. Perhaps he was even inwardly laughing, so assured he seemed until the moment his world came crashing down. That moment came when several policemen burst in shouting, "Police! and surrounded him. My sister had already found the driver's license before she told me. She had called the police before telling me, and all our conversations had been overheard by them since. There had already been several complaints filed by different women. The man's description matched those provided. The police were eager to catch him in the act if possible, and the situation was ideal. My sister didn't want to let them escape and wanted to protect me. It was a miraculous arrest, with our interests aligning in an instant. Since we hadn't formalized our marriage, the man I had thought of as my husband was now just a man being firmly taken away, and I could only watch in stunned silence. Later, during the police interrogation, he seemed to resign himself, or perhaps calculated that confessing would lighten his punishment. Without causing any further trouble for the police, he spoke surprisingly honestly. It seemed he intended to commit marriage fraud against me and bleed me dry. That was probably for the medical bills for his non-existent sister. He had also confessed to killing a woman he had previously dated during an argument. The argument had been over his true identity being exposed and her threat to report him to the police. Although he was frightened when my niece spoke up, he didn't seem to fully believe her, so I could understand why he confessed that as well. I learnt this all from the police. The night he was taken away, he woke up in the cell, choking with long hairs entwined around his neck. He confessed his wrongdoings, fearing he'd be cursed otherwise. When I asked him, "Is it true about the hair?" he laughed and said, "Of course not." He insisted he had finger marks around his neck, but apparently he was the only one who could see them. It seems that some people, when they've committed a crime, occasionally can't bear the guilt and resort to escapism. Yet, remembering the image of the woman my niece had described sent chills down my spine. As the investigation proceeded, according to the man's statement, a woman's skeleton was discovered in the woods. It made the news, and when the woman's photo was released, it was just as my niece had described. My sister and I were filled with renewed fear. The man's fraudulent activities were also reported in the news, and more victims started to speak up. It seems like his list of crimes is only going to grow. The man was sentenced to severe punishment behind bars. Inside, he is said to be terrified of the woman's spirit every day. I was simply astounded at my lack of judgment, having once decided to marry such a man. The trial for the incident in which I was victimized has ended, and I am finally free from everything. However, I've had enough of marriage. I moved back near my sister's house, so I'm still looking after my niece. Today, while I was dropping off at my sister's house, I opened up to my sister about my hesitations toward marriage and love. She said, "You're just saying that now. You never know where or when you'll meet someone. Like, you could fall in love after you leave here today." She doesn't take it seriously. And time passed, and summer came. Every year, it's my job to take my niece to the local summer festival. This year, as I was walking hand in hand with her, who was dressed in her new sundress, a man walking in front of us dropped his wallet. I picked it up and tried to call out to him, but it seems my voice didn't reach him due to the loud surrounding noise. I picked up my niece and jogged to catch up to him, returning his lost item. He thanked me and asked to treat us something. This sparked a connection between us. In the end, the three of us had a blast at the fair that day.
You're lucky, Rachel. You've been tied to this man before you were even born.
What? Hey, what are you saying? Oh my. I blushed deep red at her words, which seemed to make him blush as well. You never know where love will find you. My sister's words flashed in my mind. As fireworks lit up the night sky, I had a feeling that a new romance was on the horizon.